Hello everyone, welcome back to FantasyFootballFix.com. My name's FPL Phillips and welcome back to another edition of not just the algorithm team reveal, but this week you're returning it at popular demand. It's Eddie versus the algorithm, and the series where I take on the computer-generated team for Game Week 3 to see who can score the most points in this game week, and we'll be doing this across every game week of the season if all goes well. So yeah, if you're excited for it to be back, then make sure to leave a thumbs up, and if you're watching it for the first time, you definitely want to follow along, so make sure to subscribe down below. But without any further ado, let's get into having a look at how this algorithm team is shaping up for Game Week 3. So then we'll kick it off with the goalkeeper and a 4.5 million keeper between the sticks for the algorithm this week in the form of Jordan Pickford, who has that home game against Nottingham Forest in Game Week 3. And to be honest, looking at it, I don't think he's the best 4.5 million option to go for, not only for this game week, but also over the next couple of game weeks as well. And I've looked at all the data, and really it doesn't suggest that the Everton keeper is the best man to pick, but a home game against Nottingham Forest isn't the end of the world for sure. It's very difficult to judge with promoted teams because we don't have much data on them from the Premier League, so perhaps that's why the algorithm's taking perhaps a better chance of a clean sheet for Everton than maybe it should be, is because we don't have too much data on Nottingham Forest so far. We're only going for it based off 2 weeks basically so far, which is a very small sample size to go for. So Pickford wouldn't be my keeper of choice, but still not a bad option to go for, of course. A home game against Nottingham Forest is of course going to be a decent chance of a clean sheet for him, but wouldn't be my preferred option if you're bringing in a keeper this week, or even if you're going for a keeper for one game week and just looking at Game Week 3. But the Everton defence doesn't end there for the algorithm, with Mykolenko coming in at 4.5 million in between those other two defenders, Reece James and Rico Henry as well. So Mykolenko, again, wouldn't be one of the options I'd be going for at 4.5 million, especially not a double up on the Everton defence. I'd probably limit myself to one if I were choosing to go that way. But Rico Henry is a 4.5 million option that I do like, and we can have a look closer at some of these defensive options at the 4.5 million price bracket over the next couple of weeks. So the predicted points from Game Week 3 to Game Week 8, which I think will be more useful for you guys if you're considering bringing in a 4.5 million or below defender. As you can see, one defender at 4.0 million makes it into this list, Nico Williams being that man. So let me know if this data is helpful for you guys. If you want to check out the predicted points tool for across all positions and across midfielders, the forwards, whatever price bracket, whatever game week range you want to do, you can do so via the predicted points tool. Link is in the description to the Fantasy Football Fix website if you want to go and check that out. But Henry's in first, with Saliba and Dunk making up the top 3 places as well. But Nico Williams is really encouraging at 18.7 predicted points, down there in 6th place in this list. So very nice to see him making an appearance in the top predicted points over the next 5 game weeks for these budget defenders. And yeah, Henry looks like a fantastic option, not just this week, but over the next couple of game weeks as well. So I like him, and I definitely like him for that game against Fulham. Reece James is the final defender in here, and at 6.1 million now, still looks like a great option and pretty much as close to a must-have as you can have in defenders in FPL. I've seen a few people even considering taking him out, which is really shocking to me. He looks fantastic at right wing back, getting the best underlying data of pretty much any defender per 90 minutes. And then even when he's at right centre back, Loftus-Cheek was the one at right wing back, and he was coming inside a lot, taking up more inverted roles, allowing still Reece James to push forward and get into those advanced positions. And he really should have had an assist as well as the goal he got from that cross that was brilliant in towards Kai Havertz, who didn't manage to convert the chance. But Reece James still looks like a brilliant pick, and that game against Leeds is no different for him, an away game that I think Chelsea will do quite well in. But speaking of Chelsea, we'll move on to the midfielders and actually have a look at some comparison between these 8 million midfielders, which is what I want to do, given that we've got Maddison and Bukayo Saka in this side. Salah and Martinelli are pretty much non-debatable at this point. You should have both of them in your side pretty much. There's an argument for going without Salah at this current form, but for the moment I think most of us are going to be sticking with him if we do own the Egyptian king from the start of the season. But Maddison and Saka at 8 million, I think now's the time to have a bit of a reassessment over the 8 million midfielders, who there are a lot of debate around at the start of the season. So yeah, we're having a look towards these guys and their prices, and we've got a little asterisk there because Mason Mount's pretty close to a price drop. So if you want to keep alert with those price changes, make sure to use the price predictor tool, which you can do so via the Fantasy Football Fix website, as mentioned. Links are all down below in the description. There's just so many tools and so many cool things you can do over on the Fix website, so definitely go and check it out. But let's have a look at the data anyway. From the 22-23 season so far, per 90 minutes, it's Luis Diaz who leads the way in terms of expected FPL points and those expected goals per 90 minutes. So the Colombian looking like a great option to go with this season so far. And I'm assuming he'll be relied upon even more for goals with Darwin Núñez now suspended, of course. And then Bukayo Saka leading the way slightly for expected assists. But when we look at expected FPL points as a whole, which includes expected assists, we can see Saka actually fourth out of all the 4 options over the next, well, so far this season, I should say. In terms of game week 3 and the fixtures, they all look like really nice fixtures, to be honest. It should be really Man United as a green fixture, and we'd have a whole line of green, and a grey fixture is probably a little bit generous for Manchester United in terms of the fixture difficulty rating. So yeah, Southampton, Leeds and Bournemouth, equally great games to go for, and some very weak opponents that I'm sure all these guys will do pretty well in game week 3, and we could probably see the re-emergence of the 8 million midfielders and everyone panicking to try and scramble towards one, given that they haven't been overly impressive so far at the start of the campaign. In terms of the predicted points this game week, we can see Maddison and Saka are the top 2, which is why they've made their way into the algorithm side, with Diaz and Mount slightly behind at 4.1 and 3.5 apiece. But then over the next 5 game weeks, we can see Bukayo Saka leading the way with 22.6, with Maddison in second, so still the same top 2, but the Colombian Luis Diaz behind them 19.7 and Mount down on 17.8. Mason Mount looks like he'll drop to 7.9 any day now, so if you're looking to make the switch across and don't have anything in the bank to another midfielder, then I suggest you do it. But I would do it with caution, and I definitely wouldn't be overly scrambling to make sure that Mason Mount is removed from my team. He's got a really nice game against Leeds that we talked about, and I think that predicted points total is probably a little bit low if you were going to ask me personally, but that's what the data is suggesting. So I'd probably hold on to Mason Mount if you can afford to stomach the price drop, but yeah, 7.9 wouldn't be ideal as a price point for the Englishman to be at. So in terms of the 8 million midfielders, what would I do? I'd probably just hold on to the one you have right now, to be honest. They all look good options. I think it's probably bigger fires in your team that you need to put out right now. But yeah, equally, these 8 million midfielders look like my favourite 4 to go for. I don't think going for the Man City midfielders at this point looks like a good option. So really, I'd be picking between those 4. If you're going to bring one in, I'd suggest probably going with Luis Diaz myself personally. We'll get on to seeing my team in a minute, just as I mentioned at the start of the video. And then finally, the forward line. No surprising to see Erling Haaland and Gabriel Jesus there. But Jamie Vardy is a little bit of a surprising one, but a very nice fixture, equally pairing up with James Maddison at home to Southampton, who have been historically pretty weak opponents to go up against in terms of defences, and Leicester especially have had their joys against Southampton in the past. 9-0. Oh, sorry. But yeah, Jamie Vardy makes his way into this team. That nice game there, so really would be a 1-week punt only if you're going for Jamie Vardy. I don't think he's a good long-term option, and to be honest, takes up too much of your funds. But then finally on the bench for the algorithm, we've got Reed, Phillips and Good if needed, and of course Ward in goal, which gives the algorithm a total of 61 points for game week 3, which is a pretty respectable score. But now we're going to have a look at how my team is different. So take a mental note of the players in the algorithm side. This is my team that I'm lining up for in game week 3 on my free hits, to say. Ramsdale comes in goals. I'm spending that 0.5 extra to go with Ramsdale instead of a triple Arsenal attack. So I've gone with Ramsdale instead of Saka, basically, switched him out as an Arsenal asset there. And then as well as Reece James, I've gone with Cucurella in my defence. At 5.0 million, he's had some encouraging quotes made about him by Thomas Tuchel, suggesting he'll be playing at left wing back on some set pieces as well. Looks like a great option to go for, in my opinion, at 5.0. Really do like the look of Cucurella, but I wouldn't be switching out James for him. I'd be considering, to be honest, going with the pair of them for this really, really lovely fixture run that Chelsea have got up next. Trent Alexander-Arnold's got a pretty good game against Man United, you'd have to say, and has been getting towards some advanced positions despite 2 blanks so far this season, so I'm keeping faith in him for this game week. We saw how well Man United got on at, how poorly Man United got on at Old Trafford last season against Liverpool when they were visiting. And then finally we've got Perisic, who's probably my risky punty pick this week, just like Jamie Vardy was in the algorithm team. I've gone with Perisic as a bit of a punt. I would like to wait for the early team news ideally, but we're making this video coming out on Thursday, so Perisic is in for now, and he may not start, which he'll probably be off the bench and get a 1-pointer, or maybe even grab an assist just like he did at Chelsea, but you never know. I think Perisic, if he starts, has the highest ceiling out of any defender around that price. He's at 5.4 million with Cucurella 5.0, Walker around that same price as well, and Zinchenko, but I think Perisic has the highest ceiling, so he's the one I've gone for out of those options. In midfield, I've gone for Luis Diaz instead of the other 2 picks, Saka and Maddison, so I've gone with him for that game against Man United. I just think that United are really going to struggle if they stick to Ten Hag's style of play and really get carved open just as they did last season in that game against Old Trafford. Hopefully it does go ahead, but we've got some decent options on the bench anyway who should hopefully all get minutes if that game does get postponed for some reason. So De Silva, Nico Williams and Andreas are those players that mentioned that can come in if we do need them. And then the forward line, as well as Jesus and Haaland, I've gone for even Tony. who I think looks like a good pick for that game against Fulham. Brentford have looked fantastic so far. Fulham haven't looked amazing in terms of defence, and I really fancy Tony to get something against Fulham. And to be honest, those fixtures for Brentford are just a sea of green. So if you're considering bringing in a striker, he's my pick to go for as well. Not just for game week 3, but over a long course of fixtures too. 52 predicted points it is then for me, and that's going to wrap up Eddie versus the algorithm for its final return. So yeah, make sure to leave a like down below if you did enjoy the video, and comment down below, who do you think is going to come out on top this week? Do you think myself or the algorithm will score more points? But I'll wish you the best of luck for game week 3, and I'll see you all very soon. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.